We fight over borders, have been killing each other over them for centuries. We can't agree on one religion, one currency, or one system of measurement. But there's one thing every country, every culture, and every religion on the planet agrees on: 7 days in a week. And there's nothing behind that number. A year is tied to the sun, a month to the moon, a day to the spin of the earth. But the week isn't tied to anything. 7 days is a number that humanity, it seems, invented out of thin air, which means it should be easy to replace. The French Revolution tried, lasted 12 years. Stalin introduced a 5-day cycle, gave up after 11. The United Nations put a brand new calendar up for a vote. It got shut down. Where did this number come from? Why did the entire world agree on it? Why couldn't any force in history break it? And what if it was never invented at all? Over 4,000 years ago, the Babylonians looked up at the night sky and noticed something everyone else had missed. Most stars moved together, like one giant, slowly rotating map. But 7 objects played by their own rules, wandering among the fixed stars on paths of their own. The Greeks would later call them planetes, wanderers. That's where the word planet comes from. There were exactly 7 of them: the Moon, the Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. 7 wasn't just a number to the Babylonians. Their entire math system was built on the number 60, and in that system, everything divided evenly, by 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Everything except 7. 7 was the first number that broke the harmony. And there was something else. The moon changed its phase roughly every 7 days, from new moon to half moon, from half moon to full. The same stubborn number, now showing up in the rhythm of the night sky. When the Babylonians counted exactly 7 wanderers above them, it all clicked into a pattern. The number that defied their mathematics matched the number of wanderers and the rhythm of the moon. They assigned a god to each wanderer, a day to each god, and the week was born. But 7 gods don't explain the order of the days. Why does Saturday come before Sunday and not after Thursday? The answer lies in a mathematical accident that's 4,000 years old. The Babylonians ranked the 7 planets from slowest to fastest: Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, the Moon, and began assigning each one to an hour of the day, cycling through them one after another. First hour, Saturn; second, Jupiter; third, Mars. There are 24 hours in a day but only 7 planets. 24 doesn't divide evenly by 7, you get a remainder of 3. So each new day starts with the planet 3 positions ahead. Day 1, Saturn. Day 2, 3 steps forward, the Sun. Day 3, 3 more, the Moon. Then Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus. The entire order of the days comes from the fact that 24 doesn't divide by 7. This trick was born in the ancient Middle East, but it doesn't explain why you say the name of a Scandinavian thunder god every single week. From Babylon, the 7-day week traveled to Greece. Hellenistic astrologers working in Egypt around the 3rd century BC formalized the planetary hour system. The Romans picked it up from the Greeks, and by the 1st century AD, it was already in common use. Someone scratched graffiti on a wall in Pompeii, dated February 6th, 60 AD, calling that day the Day of the Sun, 260 years before the week became law. The Romans named the days after their own gods. But when the system reached the Germanic and Norse tribes, they refused to adopt a foreign pantheon and swapped in their own gods as a gesture of independence from Rome. Mars, god of war, we've got Tyr, the one-handed god of battle, Tuesday. Mercury, the messenger, Woden, the wanderer between worlds, Wednesday. Jupiter, the thunderer, Thor's day. Venus, goddess of love, Frigg's day, Friday. Saturday stayed Roman, Saturn's day. On March 7th, 321 AD, Constantine wrote the first day-off law in history. On the venerable day of the sun, let the magistrates and people residing in cities rest. Through armies, traders, and missionaries, the week spread across the entire planet. In Hindi, the days are still named after the same planets. The Navajo adopted the 7-day cycle immediately after contact with the Spanish. The week had conquered the world, and then the world tried to fight back. The 2-day weekend you take for granted showed up very recently. In 1926, Henry Ford moved his factories to a 5-day work week, not out of generosity, but because rested workers produce more and people with free time buy cars. That Friday feeling, Saturday road trips, lazy Sundays, all of it is less than 100 years old. But the 7-day cycle underneath it is 4,000. In 1793, the French Revolution replaced the week with a 10-day cycle called the decade. A day off every 10 days instead of 7. Workers lost a third of their free time. Napoleon brought it all back 12 years later. Stalin went further. In 1929, he introduced the 5-day continuous work week with a double purpose: non-stop factory production and a blow against the church. Without a shared Sunday, it's harder for people to attend services. Every worker was assigned one of 5 colors. Yellow rests on day 1, green on day 2, red on day 3. 4/5 of the country is always working, factories running around the clock. But a husband could end up yellow while his wife was red, and they wouldn't share a single day off. Kids went to school on a third schedule. A family of 4 might not be home together once in a month. Pravda printed a line on launch day that became famous. What are we supposed to do at home if our wives are at the factory, our children at school, and no one can visit us? 11 years later, Stalin gave up. The week beat communism. In 1955, the world calendar reached the United Nations Economic and Social Council for a vote. Jewish and Seventh-day Adventist organizations convinced the American delegation to block it. An extra day at the end of the year would have broken the unbroken count of the Sabbath, which for them had been running since biblical times. Not the guillotine, not the 5-year plan, not the vote. Nothing could break the 7-day cycle. But why? If the week is just a convention with no basis in nature, why is it impossible to replace? In 1956, cognitive psychologist George Miller published a paper that opened with this: "I have been persecuted by an integer. For 7 years this number has followed me around, has intruded in my most private data, and has assaulted me from the pages of our most public journals." Miller noticed that 7 kept showing up everywhere, in the capacity of short-term memory, in the number of categories we can tell apart, in the length of number strings we can hold in our heads. He chalked it up to a pernicious Pythagorean coincidence, just a number with nothing behind it. 10 years later, it turned out there was something behind it after all. Franz Halberg at the University of Minnesota, the man who coined the word circadian, discovered a steady hormonal cycle in the human body lasting roughly 7 days. He called it the circaseptan rhythm. In 1981, a study of 157 kidney transplant patients found that rejection episodes followed a cycle of roughly 8 days, counted not from the medication schedule, but from the moment of surgery. The rhythm was set off by the surgeon's knife, not the prescription pad. In 2001, Halberg's team measured blood pressure and heart rate in newborn same-sex twins and compared them with unrelated infants. The twins showed more synchronized 7-day fluctuations, pointing to a genetic, not social, transmission of the rhythm. In the same study, they detected 7-day oscillations on a magnetometer in Antarctica, far from people, far from calendars. And then there are teeth. The striae of Retzius, growth lines in tooth enamel, appear every 6 to 11 days in humans and roughly every 7 in chimpanzees. These lines are visible in the teeth of fossil hominids who lived millions of years before the first temple. The cells that built those teeth were keeping a count that looks a lot like a week, back when there were no words and no calendars. Scientists are still debating whether this rhythm is truly innate, but the evidence keeps piling up. 4,000 years ago, priests saw 7 wanderers in the sky and gave each one a day. Arithmetic set the order. The Norse wrote in their own gods. Constantine wrote the law. Ford added the weekend. Revolutions, dictatorships, and international organizations tried to tear it all down, and failed. And then biologists found a rhythm that may be older than any civilization. The week is built on nothing. That's what historians believed. But what if that nothing was filled in long before us?